You know, I really like tea. So I got COVID, wasn't going to make any videos, was going to take a day or two off, but then TF2 got a new update, so duty calls. So this update is the second major bug fix update that we've seen in, the last 3 weeks or so? It's actually incredibly encouraging to see that they're putting some real effort into fixing up the game now. Now, while this update isn't maybe quite as impressive as the last one at first glance, there's still a lot of stuff to go over. So let's take a look at the patch notes. So right out of the gate, we see several fixes to address exploits and stability issues. Now, this is incredibly vague, as was obviously the intention, but I can only assume that this is referring to a lot of stuff they're doing on the back end to not only combat bots, but also to just clean up the code for the game. Now, the next 3 entries in here are all aimed at server operators for community servers, and they all contain some fairly technical language, but to basically sum them up, the first one allows server operators to set a limit on how much of the server's resources will be used processing a certain client's connection before they're kicked from the server. This is essentially a safeguard against DDoS attacks and other things of that nature. Anything that could disrupt the experience of the group as a whole by one bad apple. The second change allows for more easily accessible statistics, and the third change allows server operators to disable random fall damage if desired. Next, they fixed not being able to adjust the offset for a cosmetic item's unusual effect. Can't exactly say that one was keeping me up at night, but I'm sure there's some people out there who appreciate it. Fix some players seeing unknown for their player name, another one of those little HUD fixes, so good to see that. I personally have experienced this one a time or two myself. Fixed broken transparency on cosmetics, also a nice change to see. Fixed Wag Compensation when meleeing teammates. Now this is an interesting one. I actually did a good bit of research on how Wag Compensation worked in TF2 to better understand this change, and the explanation for it is really outside of the scope of this video, but I'll have the wiki page linked down below for anyone who wants to check it out. But essentially, this change is attempting to rectify the situation of when you oftentimes get backstabbed by an enemy spy when there was no possible way it was a legitimate backstab, such as in the all too familiar situations where players abuse the CL interp command to have an artificially high level of latency. Now, the effectiveness of this change remains to be seen. I mean, this update has only been out for about an hour or so as of me making this video, but I'm certainly glad a fix is being attempted. Fixed not being able to hit a player's hitbox if it extends outside the player's bounding box during an animation. This is of course a tweak to make sure hitboxes are working correctly. Fixed jiggle bones rendering in the loadout and item previews. Now what jiggle bones is it's essentially a source engine feature that gives items a more clear depiction of movement, and you can see, for example, in the scout preview here in my loadout, for the Mad Milk, that sort of liquidy back and forth shaking effect, that's all thanks to jiggle bones, and so this tweak essentially is just to try to get them to more accurately produce this effect. Fixed the Iron Bomber's projectile collision size not matching other projectile collision sizes. So for a long time, the Iron Bomber has been widely regarded as an almost direct upgrade for the Demoman, because the collision size for its projectiles is a good bit bigger, allowing you a lot more room to work with in your aiming precision. Now that's been changed and they all are the same size, effectively nerfing this weapon, if only slightly. I'm sure there's some demo players out there who are unhappy with this change, but this is honestly for the best. Fixed conver buttons flickering after being clicked to toggle the value. This is again another change aimed at server operators for community servers. Most regular players probably won't notice this change. Fixed the shortstop shove showing as self-inflicted damage. A nice little minor quality of life improvement there. Fixed mini sentry guns not triggering damage alerts in the HUD. I wasn't aware that this was an ongoing issue, but I'm glad to see this getting fixed as well. Now, this next one is a little weird. It's fixed net disconnect reason affecting disconnect messages on the client. What's strange about this is the last major patch had something where they said added net disconnect reason to use the disconnect reason sent from the client. So it seems like they keep going back and forth on this one, trying to get it just right. I'm guessing the whole bot situation really screwed it up. Fixed minigun charges expiring too early if a server forces add Uber time. Another community-oriented bug fix. Fixed network edicts being used for server-side only entities. I'm not even going to bother to try to explain the meaning behind this, primarily because I don't entirely understand it myself. Updated mat_pickmap to allow values below -1. Now this change is low-key pretty incredible. Now mat_pickmap is a console command that sets your texture streaming budget for TF2. The range for it is anywhere from -10 to 4. This, for example, is what the game looks like on mat_pickmap 2, and you can tell the textures do not look very good. A lot of detail has been lost. The clouds need some serious anti-aliasing. And then this is the game at mat_pickmap -1. See the difference? Now, when TF2 first came out, you could use the full range of mat_pickmap from 4 to -10. But a few years into the game's life cycle, they add a restriction where you couldn't set the value at lower than -1. They never said exactly why, but supposedly it was because when they added a bunch of new cosmetics, players that had higher texture streaming budgets were having all kinds of performance issues, crashes, issues with RAM, etc. And so that restriction has been in place from basically the last 12 years. And so with this update, they have removed that, and you can now use those higher texture streaming budgets. Here's this with mat_pickmap -10, the highest you can go in terms of quality. Honestly, it's nice, but I personally can't see a huge difference too much. I'd love to get some other inputs on this if any of you know more about this topic. And then, of course, they updated and added some tournament medals and updated the localization files, because, you know, why wouldn't you? They also updated Man vs. Machine mode, adding 4 neat little changes. They fixed not being able to kick spectators, fixed bots not displaying the correct names, fixed the loading screen backgrounds on Valve servers, and fixed Ubercharge charge rate and duration upgrade not working for the vaccinator. And finally, for the last change, this one's a bit of a head scratcher, updated arena mode. Fixed players being able to late join the game, and fixed players on team unassigned being able to kill other players. Don't get me wrong, if you want to add fixes to arena mode, more power to you. But at the same time, who out there is still playing arena mode, right? Even in community servers. It's kind of like that manpower update that totally revamped manpower mode that was just kind of a head scratcher of why is this of all things the thing that gets updated? But yeah, putting all that aside, that is the update for TF2. You can really tell that the main emphasis with this one was server-side related fixes, especially as it pertains to community servers. However, the two changes I think most people are going to be focusing on is the rebalancing of the Iron Bomber and the removal of the mat_pickmap restriction, because those are the two most noticeable ones on the front end. Overall, this seems like a really solid update with a lot of great bug fixes in it. I feel that whenever they make changes like this, it's inevitable that there's going to be some new sort of exploits that are bound to come from it, so I'm curious to even see the fallout of that as well. I do want to give a big special thank you and shout out to the people who are doing these updates, whoever Valve is contracted to do them. You guys are doing a solid job. Myself and a lot of people in the community really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing how this continues to play out. So yeah, that's the video on the TF2 update. Hope you guys enjoyed and found it informative. If you did, please do leave me a like. It would be super appreciated. Till next time, I've been your host, Kess Gaming. I will see you all at the top.
Mary had a little lamb. She broke its neck and ate it.